Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors, and this is my podcast and YouTube channel, helping other people evolve. And what I do here is I interview people that have been through a struggle to get to a strength. So in probably 2019, we were just talking about, I met Kamaria at one of our events with a company that we both promote a product with. So that was probably like April or May of 2019?
Yeah, April.
Yeah. So, and just the vibe I got from her, she's just a great person. She puts off that great energy. Well, throughout time, I started hearing her story of a pretty strong struggle that she had been through, and to a strength that her and her family have gotten to through that struggle. And that's what my mission and vision is with Hope, is that so many people I feel like are at home struggling, feeling like they're all alone in their struggles. And unfortunately, most people go through struggles, but fortunately, a lot of people get to a strength. And Kamaria is one of those people that has gotten to a strength. I haven't heard her whole story, so I don't know the whole story, Kamaria, yet, but I have heard bits and pieces, and I am just excited and blessed. We've been trying to do this for a while now, and I'm just excited and blessed to have you here. Now, you said you're in Goodyear, Arizona?
Yep, Goodyear, Arizona. So we're about 20 minutes west of Phoenix.
Okay. And have you lived there always?
Yes, I actually went to high school locally here, just a few minutes from where we live now, and went to ASU, which is in Tempe, so the East Valley. And then we moved back out to the West Valley. So been Arizona, born and raised, West Valley girl.
Nice. Now, I know you said you guys had some rain today, huh? You guys have some monsoon weather right now?
Really, July is our big monsoon kind of month, and so it's been quite a bit over the last maybe 3 weeks. So it's starting to trickle into August. I think it's probably going to wrap up here soon. Usually August is just hot; it's dry and hot. So I foresee the temperatures just continuing to rise, which is less humidity. We're not really prepared for humidity, so
right. Now, what is the temperature right now?
Right now it is only 88.
Oh, okay. But that humidity.
Probably about 75% humidity though.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know. So last year, because I moved out to Arizona last year, which a lot of people know, but I came back to Ohio and Michigan from July to October. So I missed all of that. I didn't get any of the monsoon, any of the 120 degrees. So yeah, it was like I was a snowbird, I guess, as you would call it. So anyways, so I'm super excited to hear I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I said, these are the months where we all wonder why we live here.
Yes. But it's short-lived, right? Like here, like in the middle of October, I feel like we start getting nasty weather, yucky, and then it goes until sometimes June, and it's like, good Lord. So yeah, no, I'd rather have what you guys have, those 3 or 4 months that it's like hot. But so if you want to go ahead and just start, like I said, I don't really know a lot of your story. I do know some of it, but if you just want to, just start, who Kamaria is, and, what your life was like and is like, and, how you've gotten through your struggle, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So I am Kamaria. Just getting ready to turn 41 in a couple weeks. And I am a mother. I love running, a wife, and I've always just loved health and wellness and fitness. That's always been a really big part of my life. But, as mothers, that kind of takes a back burner, and, you just kind of put your kids at the top of the list, and, you really just make a lot of sacrifices. And so that was kind of my life for a while. I was in school and I was working, and, really just trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do with my life? And then the ground just got ripped up from under me. My son Dane died 8 years ago, this past May. And it's like my world just crumbled in front of me. And it's one of those things where you hear about it happening to other people, but you just can't ever imagine that being your reality. And so I was just stuck. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't know what to do. I made a promise to him and to myself that I would wake up every day and at least decide to keep living. That was much easier said than done, when like a part of you is just kind of ripped out from the inside, and it's painful and it was exhausting. And, I just found myself really just frozen in time. and it's weird because you feel frozen and stuck, but the world is continuing to move forward, and your children. At the time, I had a 6-month-old baby. I had a 10-year-old son, and then my daughter was 5 at the time. So I had other kids that relied on me, that looked to me, and were going through their own grief at the time as well. Just trying to figure out what happened and how to deal with everything, and it was really difficult for our family. And so that happened in May, and so I really just spent that summer stuck in my house, filled with anxiety and depression, and I just couldn't leave my house. I was so grateful for my family and my husband and just our community support that really showed up for us that summer, because the kids were kids, they
Right.
wanted to and so that was really difficult for me. And then it got to the point where it was like, what do I do now? I can't stay in my house forever. My husband and I had started some grief counseling, so that was really starting to give us some perspective on like what to do,
Right.
how to take care of ourselves, because I really started to realize, like, if I don't really start taking care of myself, there's no way I can show up for other people. And the guilt that I carry from his death is extremely heavy. And so in my mind, my rationalization was, well, I already feel guilty about this, so the one thing that I'm not going to add on my plate is guilt of letting down my other children. That was something that I decided was I needed to figure out how to take care of myself so that I could continue moving forward and really like just help support everybody else. My kids just still deserved a childhood. They still deserve to enjoy life. And it wasn't their burden to carry of how much I was struggling. So I kind of just went on a journey. I really, had gone to support groups and, seen how other mothers handled, this horrible loss. And it was that in itself was really heavy, because everybody just grieves so differently. And, especially when it comes to, losing your child,
Yeah.
It's just heartbreaking. And, depending on where you're at in life and the situations you're already dealing with, everybody just moves through their grief so differently. And so it was really difficult to me to figure out how I wanted to move through my grief. And then, just society, like, we don't talk about it a lot. You expect people to just kind of move on and get over it. And, so it was just all of these different kind of forces that I was facing and trying to figure out, like, what do I do with everything?
Right.
So, I just really wanted to take care of myself. That was the one thing that I knew that I needed to do, but I didn't really know how to do it. So, I just found different things in life, starting to take care of my mind. We went to therapy and counseling and, started to just kind of do different meditation practices and, started getting my nutrition right and, getting back to working out and, just really trying to take things, minute by minute, day by day as they come, because, sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have everything figured out and to have this perfect plan and to, just know it all, have it all figured out.
Right.
That in itself is a heavy burden to carry, because we don't,
Right.
it doesn't,
Right.
grieving or not grieving, life is just so heavy for everybody, regardless of your circumstances. And, a lot of times we carry, just, shame and embarrassment. And so there's not a lot of talk about how people carry it. We see now there's this kind of really big shift in our society about really embracing people's mental health struggles.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I feel like so many people go through life, especially, like older generations, where it wasn't talked about. So we just kind of suffer in silence, and you see people struggling. And so I was just really grateful for the resources that, my family and I received, and, the things that I learned over those few years. And, now just really being at a place where, knowing that I'll never get over the grief, and that it's not ever something that I move on from, but it's just something that I learned to carry with me, and how I, can manage it and deal with it and just embrace all of it, because I feel like a lot of times, you kind of put it in this box of like, okay, well, here's what I'm going through. And all right, now it's time for me to be done with that, and then you're supposed to kind of store your little box away where, most of us aren't able to do that,
Right.
and it's so maladaptive for really being able to grow and progress as a person. And so I just really now have learned to just embrace all of the feelings. I used to feel really guilty right after he passed. I felt really guilty for the moments of fun that we would have, because it's like, well, I can't feel happy because my son just died.
Yes.
And how could you ever be joyful and happy again because your son is dead and he was never coming back, and this is something that you're always having to carry. And so that in itself, this pick a side kind of thing where it comes to emotion and how we move through life was really heavy too, and as I've grown and shifted and people see me joyful, and I have so many amazing people in my community, but I have had a lot of people who oh, well, that's not realistic, and there's no way that you can be happy again. And I think we just really have to give people a lot of grace and, just understand that there's no book,
Right.
there's no directional manual on, how you navigate such a horrible loss, and, even our grief counselor, she didn't have any advice for us.
Right.
She had a child. She was just there as a supportive person. So I think that was probably the biggest, most supportive piece for us, was really just having supportive people who just loved us where we were at, and so now I try to live my life with a lot of intention, and try to find all of the ways that I can still honor my son, talk about him all the time to anybody who will listen. I love to do kindness in his honor, and really it's just about embracing all of it that comes, whether it's the joy or the sadness and the anxieties and the ups and downs. I always like to think of the movie Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's one of my favorite movies, and it's a story of this girl and her emotions, and when it starts she's got 4 basic emotions, it's joy, sadness, fear, anger, and then it was each one was kind of a separate piece of her personality. And so as the movie evolved, at the very end it turns into how all of these emotions can coexist at the same time. How do we manage it? How do the movie was how do we help her move through it? And I was like, man, that is such an amazing part of the journey that I feel like a lot of people missed out on.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Wow. So when you talk about the feelings and the grieving, and we all grieve so differently. And I've learned that what I say to people is I've lost a 6.5-month-old son to SIDS. And I lost my bonus son in a car accident in 2012, who he had been my bonus son since he was 18 months old. So what I like to say to people is, I never say I know how you feel, but I can relate to some of the feelings that you're having. And I love what you said, dealing with it, but going and making sure that you worked on your mental health and your counseling and all of that, because I think that's so important. And like you said, years ago, that was unheard of. I remember telling my mom went through so much in her life, and I would be like, Mom, I really think you should see a counselor. And she'd be like, no, I don't need a counselor, because so many people think that means that you're psycho. And it's not at all. And in our day and age, since 2020, especially, I feel like the mental health has been such an awareness all around. And you hear people speaking so much more of their traumas that they've been through in order to help somebody else, And I'm pretty sure you did a school backpack thing just recently. Is that what you're doing now? Is that in honor of your son?
Yeah. So founder where we sought our counseling is called the Miss Foundation, and it's especially for parents who have lost their children. And so the founder of the organization has stillborn baby almost 30 years ago, and her journey essentially was not having any resources. That time it was oh, your baby died, okay, good luck, so sorry, get over it.
Yeah.
And So she created this amazing space and this amazing organization. So her daughter's birthday is July 27th. And so she, after the Miss Foundation, was organized, she created the International Kindness Project Day. So every year, July 27th, where families around the world who have lost their children are, welcome to do acts of kindness in their honor. So that's what we usually try to do something. And, it's a stressful time, for a lot of families, everything's expensive and, I know people in and out of work and all of that stuff. So I was like, this is a good time to do a backpack drive. I'm like, even just shopping for my own children, I'm like, oh, everything's so expensive.
Yes.
I solicited, donations from our amazing community, and we were able to put together about 60 backpacks,
Wow.
stuff. And the cool thing is that even people who have never met Dane are always just so like touched and inspired by our story, and about how, we do these acts of kindness and just spreading a lot of love in his honor. Because I think part of the trauma is thinking that people are going to forget. And, so for me, knowing that here we are 8 years later, and I still have people that, think about him often, send me little messages like, oh my gosh, I saw this and thought of Dane. And, even a lot of my community that hadn't met Dane, people that I've met in the last couple of years, they're always just, so kind. And, so that's a big part for me, is just making sure that I continue to spread his light into the world, and, and that he's always just honored and remembered.
That's awesome. I want to touch on that a little bit because, I guess with my baby, Cody was 6.5 months old. And of course I only have a few pictures of him, and I always, keep his memories alive as much as I can. And I remember when Nicholas, my bonus son, when he passed away, and his mom had a little celebration when we did the graveside thing, like it was a few months later, but it was powerful. And it's what you just said too, because when she spoke to everybody, and I'm probably gonna get a little emotional, her words was, I don't want anybody to ever forget him. I don't want his name to not be mentioned, because, and I believe that's so huge. And I've said that to people. Like, we had a friend that was unfortunately murdered in Arizona, in 2020 by her ex-husband to be. And our friends will post pictures of her and stuff like that. And the one friend kept going, well, what if her parents are having a good day? And I'm like, and they weren't thinking about her. I said, you know what? As a loss of a child, we think of our child every single day. It doesn't matter. But to see those memories, it's a good feeling. It's like, yes, she had an impact, or he had an impact, or however it is, and I think that's so important for people to know that, because like you said too, another thing that I want to touch on that you talked about is feeling the joy, like feeling joyful again, or smiling, and people being like, you're smiling, you just lost your child, right? And you feel guilty for it. I totally can relate to that, because I was like that when Cody passed away, and I was like that when Nicholas passed away. Like, am I allowed to smile? Is somebody going to look at me with daggers because how dare you smile like this? But we have to remember, and I think this is a good point, is unfortunately, and it's a heart wrencher that they're never coming back. And we have to go on with life. Like you said, your 3 children and your husband. My son was my rock. My Chad was my 3.5-year-old little rock. And I knew I had to go on with life. Him. And fake it till you make it. I don't love that saying, but that's what I had to do some mornings, like get up and fake it. But society looks at you a different way and is like, well, you shouldn't be happy. And I love the fact that you said, no, it's okay for me to be that way, because people need to know it's okay. We are still hurt, all the things, but what is that hurt going to do for other people? And that's what I think about. If I'm laying in bed, not getting up, not living life, not doing things for my son, what's that going to do for his life? Absolutely. So I thought of that a lot. And when you said that touched home with me a lot, that, and spreading their, keeping their name alive, and the joy that they brought, and the memories, and doing kind acts like that. I love that. I'm going to remember July 27th next year, because I didn't even know about that, till I saw you do the backpacks, but I didn't really know what was going on with that. So that's so cool. So cool.
Yeah. I think it's just so important to, and that's one thing that like, I've gotten mixed feedback on, from people is like, I share it all. Like my husband's like, oh, I can't believe you posted that. And like, I share a lot. Like it's helpful for me, but I feel like it's also helpful for other people. Like, you may have 5 good days, and then that 6th day may just be the one that does you over and you can't get out of bed, and that's okay too, and I think it's so critical for people being able to like move through life, knowing that wherever you're at, it's okay.
Yes.
And just giving people the space and the grace, to just experience it, like I have great, I get up and I run and I do this and then this, but then there's some days that, like, I might just stay in the bed all day, and that's okay too. And I think it's just important that people like, because sometimes you feel so great, like, yeah, I'm doing so good, I'm doing all this stuff and making all this progress, and then you have just a day that just knocks the wind out of you and you just feel defeated, and so I think it's just, something that I've learned is like, we think of a journey and we think of you're always like in this forward motion, which I feel like we are always flowing, life is always moving, we're always flowing, and even when maybe we don't feel like we're moving and growing, we are, but it's this idea that I have to be getting better, I have to be doing all this stuff in order to be growing. But some days it's really just sitting with those crappy days and like reflecting and thinking and like just learning about yourself to help you move through it a little bit better and just to help you grow a little bit stronger. I'm with people all the time that are like, oh my gosh, you're so strong, I don't know how you do it. And I'm grateful for that. I appreciate that so much. And I'm like, I don't feel very strong. It was never my choice to have to be this strong. I'm like, I would trade it all back. I would give it all back in an instant, to not have to have learned this lesson in this manner. But here I am, and here's the journey. And like, I just allow myself the space to be wherever I'm at, and so that I can grow, and opportunities to just figure it out. Because I think, like the more I sit with myself and learn to love myself, the more I learn about myself, and I think that's such a big piece that's missing, especially from women and mothers, is you just invest and you give so much to other people. And so you really don't think about yourself very often. You don't really learn about yourself. We're always doing all these things to try to better ourselves, but along the way, like, you gotta learn to love yourself. There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve, like I big health and wellness journey, like, working out and all this stuff. But you know what, like along the ways, we have to stop and just learn about ourselves and love ourselves where we're at, and still, wanting to grow, but being okay with where you're at. I was listening to, there's a speaker that I love to listen to. And the other day, one of her recordings was talking about, you have to be satisfied with where you're at and eager for more in order to allow like just the blessings to flow in. Because, when we sit in this space, we're always thinking about like, oh, I'm not this, or, oh, I haven't done that, or, oh, I wish this, like, then you're essentially like just blocking yourself off from all of the wonderful blessings that life has to offer, because you're just so stuck in this space of like, resentment and shame and, all that negativity that just really doesn't serve us, and so I think that's been such a big thing for me, just kind of learning how that works and how much that serves me, where even if I'm having a bad day, like sitting and thinking about, well, here you are, Kamaria, and now what? Like, and now what will you do with that? Like, you feel like absolute crap today, and now what will you do? Is this the day you're going to lay in the bed? Is this the day you're going to get up and try to do 2 productive things, and then you're just being okay with whatever you did, and then tomorrow is a new day, and then you just get up and you just figure out, and now what will today be? So there's just such a big burden and so much pressure that we put on ourselves, especially when we experience these traumatic situations, because nobody teaches you how to deal with this stuff, you never know what you're doing, even the best of, like experiences and parents, even like for my own children, I hope that I have given them the space to like feel their feelings and manage their emotions, but even that, just never know, what they're going to experience, what they're going to go through, but I feel like if you just give yourself and your family this foundation to just feel it all and experience it, then it's a good start, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And when you said that about, loving yourself, so, and we always take care of everybody. That's just what we do because we're moms and that's just how we've always been. Right. So I've always been that caretaker too. Like, and from 2013 till my mom passed away in 2020, she lived with me and I took care of her and also my nieces and nephews. And so my whole life, basically, I've always just really taken care of people. And when my mom passed in 2020 and February of 2021 is when I decided to make my trip to Arizona. And can I tell you that that was one of the hardest journeys that I went on because I felt like, and it might sound crazy, but I almost felt like I had no purpose because it was just me. Right.
Yeah.
And so all these years somebody relied on me always, always. And now nobody did it. And then I had to rely on myself and find myself and love myself, and that was a journey in itself. So when you're talking about that self-love and learning to love ourselves and being okay with where we're at, that really hit home with me because it was a lot for me. And just 2 days ago, I promise you, I was like, I had a day, I did a few things around the house and then I was in bed, same thing. Like I couldn't even hardly function. And I thought, and then I got up and I was like, man, I can't believe that I just slept that long. And I did. And then I thought, it's okay. Give yourself grace because you did do 3 things that day, but I think in our world today too, not only are people talking about their transparencies, leading to someone else's transformation, as Trent Shelton says, but the social media world we live in makes everything look like it's glamorous and beautiful and you shouldn't ever have a day like that. And I call bullcrap on that.
Oh yeah.
We need those days for ourselves. You need that day. Like today, you guys got a rain this morning. I mean, that for me in Arizona, I would some days open the window going, could it just be cloudy one day? So I feel like I can stay inside. But, we need that time, to reflect on ourselves and grow ourselves and learn more about who we are. Because I think in the motherhood, being a wife, all of that, we lose who we are. At some point, and then to find ourselves again, it's a journey for sure, but to be able to do that is such a blessing. And that's where I'm at on my journey right now, like really finding who Tammy is, and it's been an amazing journey so far, but the same thing, I had to learn to love myself. I had to learn that it was okay to get in the mirror and say, man, you are really beautiful, or you are a great person or whatever. Your eyes look great today, just whatever I had to do to make myself feel good about myself. So I think that that's very important. And I'm sure that you're instilling that in your children,
Yeah, I am working on it. I have a 13-year-old daughter. So, I know the struggles that I had growing up and, I had great parents, but it was kind of that thing where it's like, for their generation, you didn't really talk about, self-love and, problems and managing emotions and confidence. And, so I'm like, I'm learning it now at 40 in my 40s. So,
right.
The goal is to help my children develop it a lot earlier, and, I feel like for every generation, it's like, the goal is just to do a little bit better, than we did before. And, it's especially, with like therapy and, just letting them know that wherever they're at is okay. And so that's a journey in itself, that's a big part of parenting that nobody talks about,
right.
It's like, oh yeah, you raise these kids and here's your toddlers and your babies and, but then it's like, how do you help them develop a strong sense of self, and confidence and to love themselves and to accept themselves and like, that's what y'all should be teaching us.
Exactly. For sure. So can I reflect back just a little bit? So with the loss of your son, and then you said your husband and you went to grief counseling, I can imagine now when I lost my son, shortly after that, his dad and I split up, but we had a rocky relationship anyways. So did you guys have to do like marriage counseling too? Or did you grief count? Did you? Yeah. Cause I can imagine that played a toll on your marriage too.
Yeah. We had, my husband is a former athlete. And so, it was like, our marriage was just chaotic, before that happened. And so then adding that onto it and, just different upbringings and different ways that we were grieving. It was very difficult. It took a big toll on our marriage. So I'll never forget when we went to, I know, in like the cemetery place, where we buried him, and I don't know what they're called, but the lady that helped us, she was like, you two have such a beautiful family. Do not let this be what breaks you up. And so, that sticks with me. And so, the one thing that I feel like the one thing that we're grounded in, sometimes you have all these different viewpoints and struggles and stressors, and, but I feel like the one thing that always has grounded us is just like the commitment, that we made to one another, and knowing that these struggles do not define us and they don't define our relationship. And, a lot of people say like love is not enough, but I think if it's an actionable thing, then it absolutely can. I feel like sometimes we throw that word around like love and, but I feel like you see the difference between like the action of love versus the feeling of love. And so, that's been one thing that, we have worked on through our grief counseling. And then, it just continued on into marriage counseling, family counseling with our kids. And I say everybody needs therapy. Yes. I don't care if you've lost a child, if you think your life is perfect, everybody needs therapy, and that's one thing that I tell my kids, like even now, and they're like, oh, I don't need to go. And I'm like, everybody needs that one person that they can just talk to, that is not judging you, that is just there to listen. And if you do need some support and advice, they can give you support and resources. Everybody needs therapy,
I agree. I agree 100%.
We will stay in therapy, and just knowing that is a safe space where it's there if you need it. We have an amazing therapist. I say that she has saved my family, just helped us through so much. And so I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and, just knowing that there's no stigma, there's no shame. Life is heavy, and I mean, if you think about like children, we come into parenting with our own baggage, and it doesn't matter how amazing you are, like that comes through in your parenting styles. And so as much as we don't want to do that, like our kids experience trauma, maybe it's little traumas, here and there, but like they still just need the support. And I feel like our society, our world might be just a little bit better off if more people embraced the idea that like, we all just have the crap hanging around that we need to work through, So,
and I love what you said about therapy, because, like I said, some people are like, that means I'm crazy. But so many times, even when I've talked to a friend, like they'll call me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I need your advice or whatever. And they'll go through their whole spiel of everything. And I might say 2 words. And then at the end, they're like, thank you so much. I feel so much better. And I'm like, you're welcome. I didn't do anything. I said 2 words, but it's just getting that out and being able, like you said, to talk to somebody that's non-judgmental, that might, if you do need some advice, or some tools, we'll give you some tools. But, I think that's very profound in our society, that we need it more and more and more. And it's okay. It's okay to get therapy.
For men too. Like, I mean, my husband wasn't open to it at first. Our grief counselor, we had seen a couple of we had done some family counseling before. He didn't like anybody, but it was this stigma for men, especially, and then in the Black culture, it's like, that wasn't a thing, and so, our grief counselor, it was so funny because she was a good friend of my family's, and she just showed up at our house like the first couple of days after he died. I mean, we just had so many people. It was kind of a blur, people dropping off food and just coming over to hang with the kids. And so she was a friend of my sister's, and she had just come by, and my sister sent her over to our house, and she was just kind of talking to us. And so it started like that because he didn't want to go, he grieved very differently. His path was to stay busy and to do stuff. And I wanted to just hide away, and so it was extremely difficult, but because we were like on opposite ends. He wants to, have parties and invite people over. I'll never forget. It was the Father's Day. My son passed in May, and Father's Day, he had this big barbecue at our house. And I'm like, I feel like a zombie because I'm like, I didn't even know what was going on, but all these people, but that was how he dealt with it, was staying busy. Right. And I'm over here like, what's wrong with him? Like, why aren't you sad? Why aren't you up in the bedroom hiding with me? And he's looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you hiding? Get out of the bed, and so it was really, like just that acceptance and like just not judging anybody else's journey and just continuing to love each other, and so, but that was a big thing for him because wasn't common for, his family, for men, Black men.
Yes.
And so that was a big stigma, that he and I had to work through together, was that, hey, this is okay. And then being able to pass that down to our children, like, this is okay. It's actually very good because it will help you be a better person in the long run. You won't be our age dealing with
all the baggage, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad that you mentioned that about men too, because I usually, when I interview men, I talk about that with mental health, especially with men. I mean, women, we'll talk about our stuff more than what men do. Let's be real. And for men, the same thing. And I just was talking to a girl at the casino the other day, and her husband was playing blackjack, and we were talking about my podcast and stuff. And she's like, man, with my husband, he doesn't talk about his feelings, and he doesn't believe in going and seeing a counselor and as she said, she's like, he's a Black man, and they were told it's just not it's not their culture, and so she said he's starting to open up more, and I'm like, that needs to be out to the world, that it's okay, whether you're white, Black, Chinese, whatever, but it just needs to be known that it's okay, it's not a bad thing. And I know here we're two women talking about it, but we see it and we know it, and I think it's very important.
You see the generational impact that it has, when men are able to, admit that and accept it, because then they can pass that same thing down to their children, especially their young boys, and so you see the cycle start to kind of break a little bit because it's being changed, and it's being accepted. So. Yeah.
Well, girl, I appreciate you getting on here with me today. I think this was amazing. I love your story of hope. I always say, unfortunately, we've been through the struggles, but fortunately we're able to stand and get through life and navigate the best that we can with, tools that we've been given throughout life. And I'm sure throughout your counseling and stuff, they've given you tools to use. And I always tell people, we get these tools to use them, I talk about my sobriety sometimes, like I don't walk out the door and there's this big bubble around Tammy that says, okay, we're going to protect her from wanting to drink or anything, in the world. No, I walk out the door and I have tools that I use, if I'm going through struggles. And so I just think that's really important. And I love that you share, and I love, I don't know your son, but I can tell by your smile, everything, that you do in memory of him is just so heartfelt. And I'm just blessed to know you. You are, your spirit and your soul, just everything about you is, I always say, like, God, the universe, whatever people say, I believe God, he draws me to people, and the people that he draws me to are the people that just have that same like soul and vibes and all that and energy. And you're definitely one of those people, and I'm blessed to know you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll see you in October.
Oh, heck yeah. I was like, I got one more piece of it that I need to meet. And I'm like, I am already planning for that. Amazing vacay. So
good.
Most definitely.
Well, is there anything that you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
I just want to, encourage people to, who's ever watching, your viewers, just really embrace taking care of yourself, because it just has a ripple impact on so many other pieces of your journey and, your community. I always say, like, we can be agents of change if we work through our own changes and well-being and, transformations. And, that's how the world changes is, good people doing good for themselves and then being able to take that good and make an impact on others. So I appreciate you. I think you do such a great service to the community by doing these podcasts and your positivity and energy. So I just want to thank you for inviting me on. This is so fun. I'm a talker. So I'm like, anytime anybody invites me to just come and talk about myself and my story and my kids and my journey, I'm like, absolutely. So
I really, really appreciate you getting on here with me. So I just want to thank everybody for jumping on Hope today. As I always say, I hope everybody has an amazing day. Don't let this world knock you down. You can get up and keep going. You just have to reach out, get some help, find a story like Kamaria's, find a story like Kevin's that I have on here. Just find a story of hope and grasp it, and you can run with it too. You guys all have an amazing day. Thank you so much again, Kamaria.
You're welcome.